very unusual but a very interesting topic, drugs in pregnancy. So it will be a shock and a big surprise for you. That's such a lot we take for granted, that we are aware of it and we know it. But when you start going through the book, you read, open the pages, you realize that, oh, this is it. So, and then we have no other than our president, Dr. Jyoti Agarwal. She'll be giving a talk on this very, very interesting topic. And I think I'm the only chairperson. Dr. Meenakshi is busy. She had called me. Dr. Chandralata has not joined. She, I'm sure, will be joining soon. Are you there, ma'am? Dr. Chandralata? नहीं है ना? अच्छा, so
screen share करूँ?
हाँ, आप कर लीजिएगा. Please start करिएगा.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be presenting and talking about drugs in pregnancy today. It sounds a very boring topic, but I will try to make it interesting by making it an interactive session, and I would like all the audience to share their experience with prescription medicines. Friends, we all know to have a normal child is a dream of all parents. Birth of a malformed child is a great psychological trauma. The effect of the drugs on the embryo, fetus, or the neonate may vary from no effect to very serious fetal toxicity, maybe in the form of fetal malfunction or fetal malformations. That is what we are scared of. Fetal age is most important to decide the effect of the drug. If the drug is taken in the first 20 days after fertilization, it's an all or none phenomenon. But if the drug is taken during the period of organogenesis, that is from 20 days to 56 days after fertilization, teratogenesis is maximum. And if the drug is given in the second and the third trimester, teratogenesis is unlikely, but the drugs may alter the growth and function of a normally formed fetus. So week-wise embryonic development is very important, and this slide beautifully depicts it. In the first 2 weeks, it's known as the conceptus, and instead of teratogenesis, the conceptus gets lost. From 3rd to 8th week, it is the embryonic period, and we should know the week-wise development, and from 8th week onwards, it is the fetal period. This graph beautifully depicts the same thing. The risk increases rapidly after 3 weeks. Maximum risk is between 3 to 8 weeks, and the risk starts lowering after 8 weeks. We all know major congenital malformations is around 2 to 3%, and minor malformation is around 4 to 9%. 25% is because of genetic or chromosomal abnormalities. 10% is due to environmental causes, including the drugs. This means the part played by the drugs is probably small, around 4%. In general, drugs should not be used during pregnancy unless absolutely necessary, because it may harm the fetus. Drugs and pregnancy is a really bad combination. How does drug gets transferred to the fetus? The main determinant is the drug concentration in the mother's blood, and we should all know there is a change in the mother's hemodynamic and pharmacokinetics during pregnancy. We are all aware of it. I'm not going into the details. And the second, another important factor to decide the transfer of the drug is the molecular weight of the drug. Drugs less than 1,000 Daltons can cross the placenta very easily. Usually the drugs are between 500 Daltons to 1,000 Daltons. Another important factor is the placental blood flow. More the blood flow, more the surface area of the placenta, greater will be the transfer. This slide depicts the transfer of the drug from the maternal side to the fetus through the placenta. Now, a word about a fetal pharmacokinetics. Since the fetus is still in the growing phase, plasma binding protein capacity of the fetus is much, much less than that of the mother. Fetal liver does express metabolizing enzymes, but both fetal liver and the kidney are still immature to take up that kind of drug load. So what kind of medication is safe to consume? FDA has established 5 categories, A, B, C, D, and X, as indicative of the level of the risk to the fetus. I will just be dealing these categories in my next slides. Category A means adequate studies in pregnant women have not demonstrated a risk to the fetus in the first trimester. Also, there is no evidence of any risk in the later trimesters also. So it is a very safe category. Category B, to be very precise, has been further divided into 3 more categories, B1, B2, and B3. B1 means drug has been taken by only a limited number of pregnant women without an increase in the frequency of malformation. But studies in animals have not shown any evidence of fetal risk. B2 means drugs have been taken only by a limited number of pregnant women without an increase in the frequency of malformation, but studies in animals are inadequate or are lacking to show any fetal damage. B3 means drugs have been taken by a limited number of pregnant women. Means animal studies have shown an adverse effect, but the benefits of the drug in human is acceptable despite its potential risk. And category D means there is a definite human fetal risk, but it is still acceptable despite its potential risk in life-threatening emergencies. Since very beginning of our MBBS, we have been taught between the two, mother and the baby, mother is the first priority. So whenever there is a situation like life-threatening emergency, mother is first priority, and even category D, drug if required is to be given. Category X is absolutely a big no-no. It causes fetal abnormalities in both animals and humans, and the risk definitely outweighs any possible benefits. They are potent teratogens. For example, statins given for dyslipidemia, vitamin A analogs, thalidomide, and podophyllin, they all belong to category X. Few drugs present variable risk to the fetus depending on the dose of the drug, the route of the administration, and duration of their use. And these drugs have been assigned double categories. For example, if a drug is given for a short period of time, it may come in category A, but if the same drug is continued for a longer duration, it may become category B or C. There are still few drugs which FDA has not yet classified, and they belong to category N. So in short, just to minimize the confusion and to revise with the audience, category A is generally acceptable, absolutely safe. Category B may be acceptable. Category C to be used with caution. Category D to be used only in life-threatening emergencies when no other safer drug is available. Category X not to be used at all. Drugs are prescribed during pregnancy for treatment of common minor ailments or treatment of pre-existing medical disease or pregnancy-aggravated medical illnesses. Now, starting with the drugs, antibiotics, it's a big group of antibiotics. There have been so many generations, 2, 3, 4, 5, difficult to remember all of them. The most notorious antibiotics is the penicillin and the sulfur group. Every second patient will say, "Mere ko to sulfur se allergy." But anyway, I'm not going to discuss the allergy part today. What I'm going to discuss is which category is safe during pregnancy. And to understand this, let's take one example. This is patient Megha, 31 years old, 14 weeks pregnant, suffering from UTI. Urine culture report shows Klebsiella, and this report is difficult to read on the screen, but I will tell you, it is resistant to all antibiotics except, please be very careful, it is sensitive to gentamicin, amikacin, gentamicin, ampicillin, piperacillin, tazobactam, imipenem, itrapenem, meropenem, and colistin. Now I would like the house to let me know what will be the antibiotic of choice for this pregnant patient. जो सबसे पहले चार बॉक्स
ampicillin
बेटा रेजिस्टेंस है.
you said कि वो है sensitive.
Gentamicin, amikacin.
Piperacillin and tazobactam. Piperacillin and tazobactam.
Or any more answers?
Meropenem.
Piperacillin and tazobactam. How frequently you use these drugs? These are all very
given. Fosfomycin can be
Meropenem can be given. Meropenem.
Oral meropenem.
Meropenem can be given.
As the name of Saronem.
ठीक है.
Meropenem.
These drugs are not
Meropenem.
very frequently used. I had put up this case especially that is ठीक है, आप ये वाली drugs ले लीजिए. But what I wanted to tell you here, which I learned in this presentation, is amikacin and gentamicin belongs to category D. मेरी हम लिख देते हैं amikacin 2 दिन इंजेक्शन लगवा लीजिए ठीक हो जाएगा. But these are antibiotics. See, tetracycline and doxycycline, we are anyway not using it. So what we have learned from this group is, we all know category A drugs, penicillin, ampicillin, amoxicillin. These are cephalexin. These are all very safe drugs. Nitrofurantoin, if used for a short term, belongs to category A. Otherwise, get shifted to category B. Category B में metronidazole and tinidazole. Metronidazole is a shade better than tinidazole. We see a lot of prescription of azithromycin these days, even for URI. But remember, friends, this is category B. Phosphomycin, a newer coming up drug for UTI, is again category B. Norfloxacin, and for that matter, all other floxacin, ofloxacin, and everything belongs to category C. I hope I am clear about the antibiotics so far. Which one is to be used more commonly? Menoprenum and piperacillin कम use होती है. Yeah? Can we move further?
नहीं, पर वो तो सेंसिटिव ही उस पर था, तो क्या करेंगे?
हाँ, तब क्या करेंगे? ठीक है बात.
I just wish to tell you, I don't want to give the names, but the names are very senior people. Come in the last 6 months, 3 people have used gentamicin, amikacin. And this is why we want to tell you that these are the drugs not to be used. At the spur of the moment, we write down, and this presentation is only just to see that you have to hold on to the pen.
Not only for हम लेबर हम लिख देते हैं कि ठीक है amikacin में या gentamicin में लगवा लीजिए. Category D, not even B. So the risk ratio must always be considered before prescribing antibiotics. And another very important thing to note is it should not be prescribed on flimsy grounds, but at the same time should be used if indicated. And another stop, ऐसा नहीं है कि वो खाती ही चली जा रही है. Another group of drugs to remember. I present a second case. This is patient Sheetal, 26 years old, 21.
Screen नहीं दिख रहा.
Screen नहीं दिख रहा. क्या करूँ? She is pregnant with anemia. She is on good iron therapy and iron-rich diet. Today, WHO recommends to give all anemic patients. What will be your drug of choice? I want to know.
Mebendazole.
Mebendazole. Very right, Dr. Vandana. You get a planter once we meet physically. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Mebendazole, and it's not albendazole. Antivirals like acyclovir and antiretroviral agents to be used because the benefits are definitely more than the risk, and this is to prevent vertical transmission to the baby. Fluconazole, we see many prescriptions. Again, it is category D. Chloroquine is the drug of choice for both prophylaxis and treatment of malaria during pregnancy. For prophylaxis, since the duration of exposure is not much, for prophylaxis it is category A. Now comes anti-inflammatory drugs and antipyretics. Suppose a patient comes with fever and headache. What will be your drug of choice?
Paracetamol.
Very good, Vandana. You get 2 planters.
Thank you.
मैंने भी पैरासीटामोल बोल दिया था.
हमने भी बोला था.
Marty note kar lena name. Everybody will get a planter. Is the safest. Drugs like aspirin, Voveron, Meftal, Tramadol all belong to category C. But you will ask me why I put a query and an alert with paracetamol. This is because my daughter, who is working in the liver transplant unit, tells me that in 70 to 80% of the cases, paracetamol is the one which causes liver damage to an extent that liver failure can occur. So injudicious and excessive use of paracetamol should be avoided. Slightest indication पे नहीं देना है, but yes, when once indicated, it is the safest. Another very important thing which I came across while preparing this presentation.
के बारे में मैं बताना जरूर चाहती हूँ कि that is the business unit of liver transplant in the country, and they are telling 80% of the liver transplants are because of the paracetamol.
Almost every day they do 1 liver transplant. So another very important thing is about the IV fluids. हम अक्सर देखते हैं कि हर दूसरे दिन पेशेंट को ड्रिप लग जाती है, इवन एट द स्लाइटेस्ट इंडिकेशन, एंड पेशेंट भी बहुत खुश होता है, डॉक्टर साहब बोतल चढ़ गई थी, अब मैं एकदम ठीक हूँ. बट रिमेंबर फ्रेंड्स, ऑल दीज IV fluids, whether dextrose, isolite, normal saline, ringer lactate, belongs to category C. So this kind of practice should be stopped because instead of harming the patient more. As far as antihypertensives are considered, it goes without saying methyl dopa is category A.
Once again, are you everybody is listening? जब अस्पताल में पेशेंट जाएगा IV लाइन लग जाएगी. This has to be curbed.
Yes, please. Antihypertensives, methyl dopa is the first line category A drug, but unfortunately it is no more available. So we are left with labetalol, which is category C. Calcium channel blockers, very frequently we use calcium channel blockers, but it belongs to category C because once given during first trimester, it can cause phalangeal deformities. If given during second and third trimester, it causes IUGR. And most of us very frequently use category C calcium channel blocker drugs. So this is an alert. Many doctors still use injection Lasix or diazepam or tablet Lasix in PIH patients, but they all belong to category C. And here I wanted to state that with hypertension, if there is dyslipidemia, statins are to be avoided because they belong to category X. Hyperglycemic drugs are considered. Insulin aspartate is category A and it is the drug of choice. Most of us are using tablet metformin. Metformin is FDA category C. Metformin still has not been approved to be used in pregnancy either by DCGI or by any of the standard guidelines. So one has to be careful in using it. As far as thyroid drugs are considered, hypothyroidism, no problem. Thyroxine is category A and safest. For hyperthyroidism, both propyl thiouracil and methimazole belongs to category C, but we have no better choice but to use instead. As far as common minor ailments are concerned, that is heartburn, dyspepsia, diarrhea, constipation, and vomiting, which we are using frequently, they all belong to category B. Nowadays, most of the time we use proton pump inhibitors for heartburn as an antacid. In this, all are category B except omeprazole, which belongs to category C. So we have to be careful. We should not use a drug which contains omeprazole. For antidiarrheal, instead of using any anti-motility agents, it is better to use ORS as recommended by WHO, जो कि हम अक्सर भूल जाते हैं लिखना. For constipation, pulse laxatives and fibers are good enough. For antiemetics, I wanted to tell you doxinate and another drug, Navina GR, which contains doxylamine, succinate and pyridoxine hydrochloride belongs to category A. Amset and Perinom both belongs to category B. I have highlighted this just to see the difference. Another common ailments like cough and common cold, antihistaminics, oral decongestant, and cough syrups can be used. They all belong to category B. Cough syrups containing bromhexine belongs to category A. Otherwise, all these antihistamines belongs to category B. For bronchial asthma, inhalers is the drug of choice. Salbutamol comes in category A, and budesonide also comes in category A. Others are category B and C accordingly. If a patient develops allergy during pregnancy or any kind of anaphylaxis, hydrocortisone acetate is category A drug. Cetirizine, levocetirizine, all these drugs comes under category B. Dexamethasone and betamethasone both are category C. So the drug of choice is hydrocortisone. As far as anti-tubercular drugs are considered, it is only rifampicin which is most notorious. Others are safe.
Dr. Jyoti, betamethasone, dexamethasone, lung maturity के लिए बताओ.
Lung maturity के लिए betamethasone is better than dexamethasone. That's what it is. उसको डिवाइडेड डोजेस में देना चाहिए, बट पेशेंट नहीं आ सकता है तो हम एक साथ बता देते हैं. Anybody wants to add something? Chairpersons?
Betamethasone, वही 2 doses, 24 hours apart. It is easy for the patient compliance.
I think it is
नहीं है ना वो बेटर वाला.
everyone is talking, so there is lot of echoes. I think everyone should mute.
ठीक है डॉक्टर इला.
I want to say something.
Anticoagulants, Heparin is the drug of choice, and in heparin also it is a low molecular weight heparin which is to be used, and that is also category B. Other heparin and warfarin should not be used, other kinds of heparin. Anticonvulsants, we did epilepsy much in detail just 2 weeks back. Just to revise, lamotrigine and levetiracetamide is the best drug with least risk. And as we move on towards the right, in this diagram, the teratogenicity increases. And all epileptic women should receive 5 milligrams folic acid throughout pregnancy to reduce the risk of birth defects. Psychotherapeutic or mood stabilizing drugs should not be used, only indicated to be used only really indicated because they all belong to category C and D, mode of counseling. As far as hormones are considered, it all started with diethylstilbestrol, which was commonly used in 1940s and 1950s to prevent abortion, but not belongs to category X. Danazol is category X. It causes masculinization of female fetal genitalia. Progestin exposure can cause cardiovascular abnormalities. What I want to highlight is about combined oral contraceptive pills. When taken during early stages of unrecognized pregnancy are believed to be teratogenic agents, and that is why pregnancies with I-pill should be terminated. Medroxyprogesterone acetate is category A. This is important to note because in case you have given Meprate to a patient for withdrawal and she happens to become pregnant in the same cycle, she can very well continue the pregnancy. As far as chemotherapeutic drugs are considered, they all belong to category D and X. Methotrexate is important to know because unless we have a definitive diagnosis of ectopic pregnancy in our hand, methotrexate should not be used. It is category X. About drugs and lactation, we'll be dealing it much in detail, maybe a second lecture. But one should know that the maternal serum concentration of the drug is the main determinant to be coming in the milk. A very basic simple rule is if a drug is available in a formulation for children, it is likely to be safe for breastfeeding. During lactation, there are 4 categories of drugs. Drugs to be avoided, drugs to be used with caution, drugs which are contraindicated, and drugs which causes toxicity in high doses. The whole list is there, but I'm not going into the details. Using a drug with caution means to avoid its use if possible. So to conclude, prescribe drugs during pregnancy only when definitely needed. Choose the drugs having best safety record over time. As far as possible, avoid medication in the first 10 weeks of pregnancy. Use the lowest effective dose and use drugs for the shortest period necessary. Thank you all very much.
Very good lecture, Jyoti. It was a wonderful session. I just want to know one thing. If a patient is having infective diarrhea during antenatal period, which drug do you think that should be given?
In fact, how do you say? Stool culture में positive आया है कुछ?
Yeah,
In fact,
like
patient को fever है diarrhea के साथ gastroenteritis है.
suppose amoebiasis is there and there is a bacterial infection too, foul smelling stool and all that.
Can be used in the second. Flagyl हम दे देते हैं. Though it belongs to category B2.
Flagyl we can give.
Yes.
And we can give cefixime also साथ में.
Yes.
Yes. Cephalexin is category A, along with it lot of fluid and ORS.
And another thing is nitrofurantoin should not be given in the last trimester before delivery. This leads
Dr.
to
Jyoti?
neonatal jaundice.
एक comment था. You mentioned about use of IV fluids in pregnancy to be used with caution as their category C. So, but I can speak for myself that somehow the rule has been as soon as the patient is admitted, we put an IV line that in case of emergency.
During labor.
So we start IV fluids at 80 cc per hour as a maintenance fluid. So many times when she comes into labor or with nausea, vomiting.
लेबर की बात अलग है डॉक्टर दीप्ति. लेबर में तो हमको लगाना ही है बिकॉज अगर वो डिहाइड्रेट हो जाएगी.
लेबर की बात नहीं है.
I'm talking about the antenatal period. लेबर में तो ड्रिप लगानी होती है.
Even in antenatal period में भी डॉक्टर साहब जब आती है, आप देखिए हॉस्पिटल का रूल होता है अगर if she's got hypertension and we admit her for monitoring or
No, this is what we are trying to tell you.
कैनुला डाल देते हैं लेकिन ड्रिप जरूरी नहीं है स्टार्ट करना. कैनुला डाल देते हैं बस.
डॉक्टर दीपक यही बता रहे हैं कि
ड्रिप नहीं लगाते हैं, एंटीनेटल पीरियड में ड्रिप नहीं लगाते हैं, सिर्फ कैनुला डाल के छोड़ देते हैं कि इफ रिक्वायर्ड वी गिव to be given antibiotics or something.
But there must be some kind of a dosage after which we consider it as not safe. There has to be some limit beyond which we.
Dr. Deepti, here I wish to tell that this is an habit that the patient goes to the casualty and IV line is on.
Ji.
I think, you know, as a general practitioner, as a family physicians, those people I give कि उनको पद्म श्री मिलना चाहिए जो कि IV लाइन ही लगाते, नहीं तो मैंने बड़े बड़े लोग देखे क्लिनिकल प्रैक्टिस करते हुए IV लाइन लगा देते हैं and they earn 1,000 rupees out of this. So I think, you know, this is only a message. The message is given by Dr. Jyoti. The rest is you people are intelligent enough yourself what should be used and what should not be used.
labor is different, Dr. Deepti.
This thing, and you know, one has to be very careful that आपने जैसे मैडम मीला ने बोला कैनुला लगाइए, आप IV लाइन लगाने की जरूरत नहीं है. लेबर की बात डिफरेंट हो रही है.
लेबर तो मैं लगेगा ही, लेबर डिफरेंट है. Before I stop sharing my screen, I wish you all a very, very happy Deepavali.
Thank you, same to you. Thank you, same to you, dear.
मैं स्क्रीन स्टॉप शेयरिंग कर दूं मालती फॉर द नेक्स्ट स्पीकर.
हाँ.
अच्छा ठीक है.